Okay, let's try and set the scene. We're talking April 24th, 2025, Baisaran.
Right.
Now, if you haven't been, just imagine this huge, beautiful meadow. It's tucked away in the Anantnag district, Jammu and Kashmir. Only about, what, 6 kilometers from Pahalgam?
That's right, yeah, near Pahalgam, which many people know.
Yeah, think postcard views, misty pines, rolling hills, just pure peace. It was a huge draw for tourists, a real escape. But that day, that picture, that peace was just obliterated in the most brutal way.
Yeah, the serenity of it all just shattered instantly. 5 terrorists, and the links back across the border seem pretty clear on this. They came down on Baisaran and committed, well, an atrocity.
26 men.
26. Just let that number sink in for a moment. Shot down in front of their families.
It's horrific.
The level of brutality that's, well, it's hard to process. It goes beyond just tragedy, doesn't it? It really demands we look deeper, understand what happened.
Exactly. This wasn't random. It felt calculated. And that's why we're doing this deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're not just going to dwell on the grief, though that's obviously immense.
Of course.
This is about really dissecting it. What happened? What are the really hard questions this brings up? And where do we potentially go from here based on what we know?
Okay, so let's paint a clearer picture, if we can, of that terrible day. Imagine those families. They're on vacation looking for peace, beauty.
Yeah, the very things Kashmir offers.
Precisely. Baisaran would have been vibrant then. Lots of people just enjoying the scenery. And then just terror, utter sudden violence.
And what really stands out, what's deeply disturbing, are the reports suggesting specific targeting.
Yes.
That it wasn't indiscriminate. The information seems to point to the men being singled out.
Yeah.
And along religious lines.
Which suggests a very clear, very ugly intention. To maximize fear, sow division, it's a tactic, unfortunately, we've seen before.
But the impact here, it's just chilling.
And the contrast, the stunning beauty of Baisaran, that idyllic setting, and then this horror. It's almost impossible to reconcile.
It really highlights the insidious nature of this kind of terror, doesn't it? Seeking out peace to inflict psychological damage.
Exactly. Maximum impact.
But even in that darkness, there was this incredible act of bravery. We heard about a local Muslim man.
Yes, that story.
Who apparently didn't hesitate, just put himself in the line of fire to shield tourists.
An incredible act of selflessness. It says so much about the fundamental decency within the Kashmiri community itself.
It really does. A powerful reminder, isn't it? That even when faced with that kind of hate, humanity can still shine through.
Absolutely. But as often happens, the attackers vanished, disappeared into the forests nearby, leaving behind death, devastation, and a nation just reeling.
Which brings us immediately to the question everyone's asking. How? How could this happen? Who was responsible for security, for protecting those tourists in such a well-known spot? It feels like there's some very, very serious questions about intelligence, about security protocols that need answers.
You're absolutely right to raise that, and the information we have suggests, well, it suggests this wasn't entirely out of the blue.
Oh.
There were intelligence reports before the attack, indicating suspicious activity, talk of potential terrorists, scouting hotels, checking out the terrain right there in that area.
So the signs were there. Warnings, even.
It seems that way, which makes it even harder to comprehend the next part.
Which is?
The apparent lack of any visible security presence in Baisaran itself, despite the warnings, despite it being a known tourist hotspot.
That's the baffling part. It's not some remote, unknown valley. It's Baisaran. People go there.
It really points to a significant lapse, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
We hear about security being tight in main areas. Pahalgam itself apparently had protection, but Baisaran, it's like you lock the front door but leave the back gate wide open. It feels like a crucial vulnerability was just exposed.
And look, we get it. Securing all of Kashmir, the mountains, the Pir Panjal range, it's vast. It's incredibly difficult terrain.
It is, no question.
But that doesn't fully excuse, does it, the lack of security in a specific high-traffic tourist location? Especially if there were prior intelligence whispers. It feels like a matter of perhaps prioritization.
Exactly. The scale is a challenge, definitely. But risk assessment is key. A place like Baisaran, given its popularity, given those indicators, you'd think it would be higher on the priority list.
And you just have to remember the context here. Kashmir saw, 2 crore tourists in 2024?
An incredible number. Shows the appeal.
But it also carries a massive responsibility for safety. This attack, It's not just the tragic loss of life. It hits right at the heart of Kashmir's tourism revival.
It absolutely does, and that brings us to the question of who's behind it. And, well, the shadow of Pakistan looms large here, doesn't it?
It inevitably does. This isn't happening in isolation. We're talking about decades of conflict in Jammu and Kashmir.
Precisely. Over 30 years, Pakistan's role has been significant. And the tactics here, they have the hallmarks, the fingerprints of groups supported from across the border, the ISI, Pakistan's intelligence agency, often implicated.
Groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Lashkar-e-Taiba, yes. Their history in the region is long and devastating. We've seen horrific death tolls linked to their activities over the years.
But this feels different somehow. Targeting tourists so directly, that seems like a shift, a worrying escalation.
It does feel like a shift. Civilians have been tragically caught up before, of course, but tourists haven't typically been the primary target like this. It seems deliberately aimed at Kashmir's economy.
Hitting where it hurts.
Exactly. Cripple tourism, create fear, deter visitors. It's a calculated strike to destabilize the region, undermine the image of peace.
And the details about the weapons. M4 carbines. That's not standard insurgent gear.
Not at all. M4s suggest access to more advanced weaponry, possibly state-level support or acquisition. And the reported increase in foreign terrorists, maybe around 75 now, that points to a continued, maybe even increased effort to bring in fighters from outside.
It suggests a level of sophistication and maybe sustained external backing.
Definitely. And we can't forget the ongoing issue with drones. Smuggling weapons, drugs across the Punjab and Jammu borders, that's another channel, another way resources and fighters could be getting in.
Okay, then there's the ceasefire, the one along the line of control, in place since 2021. Looked good on paper, reduced daily firing.
Which was welcome, obviously.
But some analysis now suggests it might have actually, maybe unintentionally, helped Pakistan strategically.
Well, if you look at the bigger picture, the ceasefire seems to have allowed Pakistan to move a lot of troops, maybe 80,000 or so, to their western border with Afghanistan.
Because they have their own issues there, the TTP, refugees.
Exactly, a complex situation there. Meanwhile, reports suggest crackdowns continue in Balochistan, Gilgit-Baltistan. And the ISI's focus on Kashmir hasn't really wavered.
And the public statements from Pakistan's army chief, others, about Kashmir.
The rhetoric remains pretty consistent. No real sign of a fundamental change in their long-term policy objectives toward Kashmir.
So the argument is the ceasefire might have given them breathing room, allowed them to redeploy, maybe even double down on proxy activities in Kashmir while things were quieter on the Lhotse itself.
That's the concern being raised, yes. Has this period of relative calm inadvertently given Pakistan an advantage, allowed them to shift focus? It's a serious question.
Okay, so given all this, the attack, the security questions, the potential Pakistani role, the ceasefire context, what are the possible responses? We've seen the initial moves from the Cabinet Committee on Security.
Right. Suspending the Indus Waters Treaty, expelling military advisors, closing the Atari border, canceling visas.
But there's criticism too, isn't there, that these hit ordinary people hard.
That's a really important point. These actions send a strong signal, exert pressure, sure. But the wider impact, suspending the Indus Waters Treaty, has huge implications for water, for farming, on both sides. Border closures, visa issues. They affect families, trade, people with legitimate reasons to cross. So you have to weigh the strategic intent against the human cost. It's a difficult balance.
Diplomatically, there's talk of briefing allies, pushing to label Pakistan a state sponsor of terrorism.
Absolutely. Diplomacy is crucial. Sharing evidence internationally, building consensus against state-sponsored terror, that's vital for isolating perpetrators and seeking accountability. A formal terror designation carries real weight, legal, economic consequences.
And then this idea of a calibrated response.
Right.
Learning from Uri, from Pulwama. What does that actually mean here?
It means measured, strategic. Not just lashing out in anger, understandable as that anger is. It's about carefully weighing options, consequences, aiming for specific outcomes. Based on Uri and Pulwama, the thinking seems to be about impact deterring future attacks without necessarily starting a full-blown war. And there seem to be three main options floating around.
Right. Let's break those down. First, potentially scrapping the ceasefire on the Lhotse, calling Pakistan's bluff, essentially.
The thinking there is, look, the ceasefire might be helping Pakistan more right now. By ending it, India signals a tougher stance, a willingness to respond more forcefully. The bet is that Pakistan, tied up on its Afghan border, dealing with Balochistan, might not want a major escalation on the Lhotse.
It's about testing their resolve, pushing back.
Kind of, yeah. Reasserting initiative, perhaps.
Okay. Option 2 seems to be more about covert action, ramping up intelligence, going after sleeper cells, fighting propaganda. The NIA investigation fits here, right?
Exactly. This is about working behind the scenes. Better intel, disrupting plots before they happen, tackling the online radicalization. The National Investigation Agency, taking the lead on Baisaran, is key. Gather undeniable proof of who did this, who backed them.
And then share that proof internationally.
Critically important. Build that international case.
And the third option, smart kinetic action, targeted strikes.
This is the more direct military option, but still calibrated. Based on solid NIA intelligence, identify specific terror infrastructure camps, launch pads, whatever, conduct precise strikes, but crucially, only after briefing key allies.
Like the US, Japan, Australia.
Right. Get them on board, explain the rationale. The idea is to send a strong deterrent message without triggering a wider conflict, especially given the international condemnation of the attack, though China and Turkey have been quieter, notably.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room, the nuclear bogeyman, Pakistan's nukes, the fear that any real response could escalate.
It's always there, that calculation. It has to be. But the argument against being paralyzed by it is strong, too. Look at Mumbai 2008. Clear evidence, limited direct military response.
And accountability. Still waiting, largely. Tahoe Rana's possible extradition after 17 years. It feels too little, too late.
Precisely. The point being made is there must be consequences for attacks like Baisaran. Real, tangible consequences. And the fear of nuclear escalation, while serious, can't be a free pass for state-sponsored terror. Accountability has to mean something.
Absolutely. And beyond the strategy, the geopolitics, we just had to keep remembering the human cost here. Baisaran isn't a statistic, it's lives lost.
We must never forget that. 26 people gone, families destroyed, that beautiful place now marked by this horror, but, as we said, that local man's bravery.
A symbol of resilience.
An incredible symbol of the Kashmiri spirit, yes, even amidst such darkness.
And the reports suggest real unity across India afterwards. Political lines blurred, ordinary Kashmiris united against terror. The Prime Minister's commitment seems to reflect that feeling.
That unity is vital. Look, it's natural to feel angry, impatient, you want action now, but channeling that energy into a smart strategic response, that's crucial for long-term security.
So, looking ahead, we hope Baisaran finds peace again, becomes that welcoming place, that resilience. It feels essential.
It is. People want normalcy, peace. But it needs more than just local resilience. It needs answers. Accountability. Decisive action, whether that's changing the ceasefire terms, covert ops, targeted strikes. Those are the hard choices being weighed.
Ultimately, though, the message seems clear. India won't be bowed by this. There will be consequences for the attackers and for those who support them.
Indeed. There's a feeling that this time might be different, that the response needs to be more than just symbolic. The old rules might not apply anymore.
So to those behind this horror in Baisaran and those giving them shelter, the message seems to be, we're coming for you, and this time, we're not playing nice.